Razer Blade Pro 17 Opinion. To illustrate just how large the difference is between the default RTX 2070 Max-Q and the Blade Pro 17's overclocked 2070 Max-Q 90 watts, here's the performance breakdown showing a 20% advantage. 20%. For two GPUs with the same name. Not a great situation for people who need to choose between different laptops, but good news for buyers of this laptop, it's a lot faster than you might expect. We cannot be sure how the RTX 2060 is configured in the Blade Pro 17 specifically, but compared to previous laptops we've tested with this GPU, the RTX 2070 Max-Q 90 watts is around 26% faster on average. That's in line with the difference between the 2060 and 2070 laptop variants, because of course this Razer laptop delivers basically the same performance as the 2070 laptop GPU. We're also looking at 10% better performance than the default RTX 2080 Max-Q. Yep, that's right, this RTX 2070 Max-Q actually outperforms a GPU that has a higher product name and should perform better. When you look at raw performance, the Blade Pro 17's GPU configuration delivers around 6.47 TFLOPS compared to 6.45 TFLOPS for the default 2080 Max-Q, so the units we've tested have underperformed a little compared to where they should be, but a great showing for the Blade Pro nonetheless. As for the 90 watts variant of the 2080 Max-Q, still 6% faster. Again, the laptop we tested with the GPU might have underperformed, but it's still a highly impressive result for Razer. If you're coming from a standard GTX 1070 Max-Q laptop, you can expect 36% better performance on average. Or from a standard GTX 1060 laptop, you're looking at a huge 61% performance gain. Those are big improvements and would be worthwhile upgrades depending on how old your current system is. We are pleasantly surprised with the thermal performance of this laptop. The Razer Blade 15 we reviewed a year ago ran hot, and it was using an underclocked CPU and a GTX 1070 Max-Q, reaching 81 degrees on the GPU while gaming and 88 degrees on the CPU. The Blade Pro 17 is not only faster, but cooler. The GPU sits at a much more manageable 71 degrees, which is one of the best results we've seen from this generation of laptops. CPU temperatures are average, at 86 degrees. Unfortunately, the Blade Pro 17 is still loud under operation. We wouldn't say it's louder than other laptops that deliver similar cooling performance, it's around the same mark, but it's still not a quiet system for gaming, and the high-pitched cooler whine does get annoying. We're also pleased to report there was no throttling whatsoever with this new laptop design. We'd love to see better access to fan profile tuning through Razer Synapse, which could harness some of the available thermal headroom in this design depending on the conditions. When you set the CPU and GPU to run in the best performing mode, you lose access to the fan control, so you can't simply tune down the fan speeds at the top end and run the GPU at say, 80 degrees instead of 71 degrees. A lot of laptops have this functionality, but with a Blade Pro, if you want the best performance, you'll have no choice but to put up with loud fans. Ideally, we'd have a better way to harness the thermal headroom. At least with decent component temperatures, the surface of the laptop doesn't get outrageously hot in key areas like prior designs. A few other relevant performance notes: the SSD provided is a Samsung PM981 512GB, which performs well, and there's an additional internal M.2 slot for upgrades if required. The display is a 17.3-inch 1080p 144Hz IPS. This is a better than usual quality panel with a contrast ratio of over 1400 to 1, and color performance in the 2.0 to 2.5 Delta range out of the box, which is acceptable. Gamers will appreciate the top-end refresh rate, which is well suited to the hardware inside. Overall, we come away impressed with what the Razer Blade Pro 17 brings from a technical standpoint. Performance, when set in the appropriate mode, is better than advertised, especially for the GPU. Buyers should be really happy with how this laptop performs in productivity and gaming workloads. Performance isn't the only technical hurdle Razer has resolved compared to last year's Blade 15. Thermals have been improved and the design is as excellent as ever. 2.5 Gigabit Ethernet is a nice premium touch, and the 1080p 144Hz display is great. Our only nitpick is the keyboard, which leaves room for improvement. In terms of value, we would argue there are two perspectives here. As far as well-built, slim and light gaming notebooks go, we don't think the Blade Pro 17 is ridiculously expensive. At $2,800 for the model we just reviewed, It's only $100 more than the similar MSI GS75 Stealth with the RTX 2080 Max-Q. While we are comparing RTX 2070 Max-Q to RTX 2080 Max-Q, we've tested both laptops and the Blade Pro is 7% faster despite having the slower GPU on paper. This may be enough to justify the higher price tag. Given the Razer Blade Pro 17 basically sits in the RTX 2080 Max-Q performance category, or better, where most equivalent offerings are at least $2,500, we think this laptop puts up a strong showing given its design, performance and feature set. It's an expensive affair, but you're paying for what you are getting. On the other hand, seen from a different angle, you can get full RTX 2070 laptops with near identical performance to the Blade Pro 17 for under $2,000 these days. But they will be thicker and heavier systems in general with more basic designs. If you're just after performance, then those may be the better option, but if you're keen on the design and portability advantages of this class of notebook, the Blade Pro 17 delivers.